Danny. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you to kick things off.
Thank you so much, James. Hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in this group, so thank you for joining us today. James, you want to throw up the deck? We want to welcome everybody today. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of promotion around this webinar, and really are happy to see champions of multicultural and inclusive marketing here today. This initiative has been 1 year in the making, 1 year plus in the making. And I'm really happy to kick off with some just really macroeconomic insights about why this work matters and why we think, this type of research is important. So next slide. Over 80% of multicultural and inclusive consumers expect brands to take public stances, including anti-discrimination on DEI in their ads. Now, this is a macro insight in that this is all consumers. But the really important thing that we get to here and that you'll see later today is the power of representation and the power of inclusive storytelling, which we believe is really crucial to increasing the visibility and increasing access for multicultural travelers. Next slide. I had a chance to do a lot of work last year at multicultural conferences and just dialogues around the state of DEI, where it is today, some of the political impacts that have come as a result of some attacks on DEI. And as many of you know, there's been some challenging news headlines coming out of DEI initiatives and attacks on whether or not it's effective. But when it comes down to it, we see that 76% of all consumers, not just multicultural consumers, are comfortable seeing messages and storytelling that revolve around culture and identity. So it's really important that we keep an eye on the prize in terms of what this means and not let political distractions get in the way of our work. Next slide. And we believe this is really important because the future is more multicultural, inclusive, and intersectional than ever before. You've probably heard this stat before. I use it every time I speak. It's that over the last 10 years or so, 100% of the growth in this country is multicultural. Our communities, our country is becoming more diverse, more multicultural, more intersectional in the way we identify. And certainly this study is hoping to shed some light on how those differences or similarities impact our work. Next slide. So we argue that the future is now, and calling this the future of travel really wanted to bring awareness to the insights that we just shared, the research that's out there, but also the need for additional research in terms of why this matters. Strategically, we have really two questions here. And I hear this all the time from clients, right? Is a future strategy all about individual campaigns that represent underrepresented audience specifically, or are we looking for integrated multicultural campaigns that might allow us to reinforce our brand, our storytelling, and better connect in a relevant way with emerging multicultural consumers? Next slide. But ultimately, we think that this future of travel is about belonging. This is an amazing initiative, and you'll see my colleague Whitney share some insights about some just stories that we've captured. The idea that feeling welcome, feeling like you belong really is the key to removing barriers. And when we talk about the travel industry and what's ahead for us, the idea is to increase economic prosperity by removing those barriers. So we're really excited to get into this study. And I'm personally really excited because in this group, next slide, you'll see that we have come together with really powerful organizations who maybe alone couldn't really tackle this work, but in aggregate, in combination, in concert and cooperation, we've come together to advance the idea of more research in the multicultural space. I'm proud to say that every one of these organizations that's organized this research is woman-owned, Hispanic-owned, LGBT, well, not each of them Hispanic-owned. I'm Hispanic, LGBTQ-owned, the Culturist Group, Edward College Consulting, woman-owned, JMI, Share More Stories, Black-owned. So minority organizations in travel really looking to make a difference. And I'm really proud that we've come together today. So next slide. This is where I introduce myself. I'm Danny Guerrero, founder and CEO of the Culturist Group. And as some of you know, I've been involved in advocating for a more inclusive industry going back to 2018. I'm really lucky to work with travel brands and destinations that prioritize multicultural and inclusive storytelling. And really, really happy to be working alongside people like Whitney White with JMI agency.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate the intro. As Danny mentioned, I'm Whitney White. I'm the Director of Account Management at JMI. And at JMI, we help travel brands and other brands implement insights into their marketing strategies, campaigns, and messaging. In a moment, after I take you through a couple pieces of context setting information, you'll hear from our other FOT partners, Future of Travel partners, Ezra Calvert, president of Ezra Calvert Consulting, and James Warren, founder and CEO of Share More Stories. Next slide. So you may be wondering why we decided to focus on stories with this study. And it's because stories can tell you a lot about a person, a lot more than what you could learn from a simple yes or no question. Stories, they enable a deeper consumer understanding because stories often reflect in the most authentic way values and beliefs that are important to an individual. Stories can also tell you a lot about how a person navigates challenges, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, details on cultural background and influences, and so much more. These pieces of data, these insights, they illuminate pathways that brands can follow to create a sense of belonging with travelers, their emotion and connection. Next slide. Next slide. So stories, they're rewarding also for the storyteller too. On the slide here, there's a quote. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to start with, there's a quote that we keep at the center of our hearts, and it's by Maya Angelou. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And we love that quote, especially in working with this project, The Future of Travel, because we believe everyone has a story to tell and everyone's story matters. And so with this study, we wanted to hear the stories that were underheard, and that meant a lot to our participants. And there's a quote from one of our participants on the screen here, and I'll just read it. I participated in this study because I truly believe in what you're doing. Sometimes it's a risk responding to these things via social media, but I did check out your organization. There is not enough diverse voices when it comes to traveling. I look forward to the results of your study when available. Next slide. And then another participant shared with us, thank you for allowing my voice to be heard. Sometimes it's hard to believe that others actually care about what I have to say. I really appreciate the opportunity. Please let me know if there's anything else you need from me. And so not only are these your consumers, they're, as Danny mentioned, projected to be the largest high growth audience we'll see in our lifetime. So we recruited those that possess diverse, intersectional, and underrepresented backgrounds, including race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, age, religion, and ability. We also recruited a small subset of travelers who did not identify as part of any of those groups, just for comparison purposes. We then introduced them to the Share More Stories app called Seek app. Seek is a human experience insights platform, and its Seek app uses personal storytelling and AI to give companies the insight they need to create better experiences. Once users were acclimated with the Seek app, we did one last thing before we let them go. We gave them a story prompt. And that story prompt, it was, tell us about one of your most memorable trips or travel experiences in the US. And their stories were amazing. You'll get to hear some of the inserts in just a moment. Next slide. Thank you so much to our sponsors for making this thought leadership initiative possible. Virginia Tourism Corporation, Richmond Region Tourism, and Miles Partnership. Your partnership speaks volumes being involved in this work. Next slide. After the insights presentation that you'll hear from James and Ezra, we will begin engaging our esteemed panelists for today. Our panelists are Rita McClenny, President and CEO of Virginia Tourism Corporation, Tom Loftus, Vice President of Marketing with Richmond Region Tourism, and Melissa Cherry, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Miles Partnership. And I will pass things to James and Ezra to begin taking us through the insights.
Thanks so much, Whitney. So excited to be able to share with you all today what we've learned through this process, and most importantly, what it means for you and what you can do with it, how you can take action in your brand, your destination, your organization, or your business. And so As Whitney pointed out, one of the things that's unique about this study is the use of stories, especially because they focus on what people want to tell you about their experiences more than just what you want to hear. And process itself creates a deeper connection that allows us to get to the insight that we have. The other thing that's interesting is how this study uses AI to identify themes and attitudes to effectively quantify the emotions that these stories reveal. And this approach really allows us to not only sort of look at this group as a whole, but to dive deeper into individual segments within this population to understand what might be unique about their experiences or their emotions or their lives so that we can meet them and engage them where they are in the most authentic ways possible. Now, at a high level, there are several key findings that we want to share to sort of set things up for today. You're going to hear a lot about trust, why it matters, how to build it, what it leads to. Cultural joy is a big idea coming out of this study. So much of today's effort to connect with multicultural consumers can sometimes be a little flat, can be one-sided or limited. But the big news here is it's not all doom and gloom. There is a deep, profound joy that is and often has been part of these people's and communities' lives for a very, very long time. We got to connect with it authentically. Speaking of that, you have to also connect with the people that your communities, your consumers, and your audiences are listening to. Who do they trust? We got to find them and you have to engage them. And then you have to put in the work to engage multicultural communities. It's neither this nor that. It's not all one group or a bunch of individual groups. Danny framed that strategic question for you up front. And the answer is it depends. There's a balance of engaging these different audiences and segments in an authentic way by personalizing and understanding who you're talking to. Now, Whitney already told you how intentional we were about engaging a diverse, multicultural, intersectional group of people. And that's exactly what we did. Our nearly 300-person group had strong racial diversity. People who identify as LGBTQ plus were well represented. And you see some of the intersectionality come into play right here, with over half of LGBTQ plus participants being Black or Hispanic as well. Almost 2/3 of our group were millennial or Gen Z. Over 50% identified as female. Just under 10% identified as needing accessible options in their travel or as having a disability. And given the role that religion or faith or more generally spirituality plays in cultural identity, we wanted to also make sure we had broad diversity here. Now, while there are no monoliths, and you've probably heard me say that if you've been in one of our discussions as well, this study did start to give us at least a way of thinking about this question of how do different multicultural diverse groups, what do they have in common, and also what are some of the differences? And one of the things that was really interesting is there is, in fact, an extremely large but very diverse group that has a lot in common. And this is great news from an overall brand marketing and messaging strategy perspective. There's also a really small but very interesting group that we think might define the ideal influencer of tomorrow. The friends and family that you need to get to who will make a difference in travelers' decision making. Again, there are subtle differences here that are critical to understand, and you got to cultivate a true sense of belonging. To do that, you have to focus on the nuances as a brand or a destination or an organization to show that you see people and communities for who they actually are. When you recognize these differences, it enables you to have perhaps a broader multicultural pathway forward, and it heightens your relevance for individuals of multiple identities. Identity and culture, from what we've seen in this study, really are becoming intertwined with travel on a lot of levels, in particular, travel inspiration. The differences are even more pronounced with some of these audiences, especially driven by Black, Hispanic, and LGBTQ travelers. They really factor their identity, culture, or community, or background, if you will, into what inspires their trip or their travel. This is a little less important for Asian travelers and travelers who identify as Caucasian or white. But these patterns also hold true for how they choose destinations. So with that setting at a high level, I'm going to turn it over to Ezra now to further bring some of these insights to life and some of the powerful implications for you, your destination, and your brand.
Thank you so much, James. Hello, everyone. As James said, travel is an inspiration highway. And from an emotional perspective, we saw two emotions dominate the travel space. It's joy and sadness. This was evident in 75% of the stories. So travel is a dichotomy. It's a balancing act and at times a trade-off from travelers' perspective. While we want to emphasize joy, we also have the responsibility to manage risk of sadness. These are the risks posed to travel. So within that, consumers are constantly navigating their environment, even during their planning stage, to seek the joy in travel and manage and avoid sadness. They look for circles of trusted voices for guidance. So here in this graphics, you'll see on the left, the friends and family as the top sources consulted during planning stage. And travel websites come as second. We believe that it's crucial for brands to maintain that trust and engage travelers because walls of trust will continue to narrow. And secondly, on the right side, we'll see some technology aspects with search engines and social media. So in the age of AI and technology, there are tremendous opportunities for brands to personify and guide consumers' journey through personalization. But it's the circle of trust that we see, friends and family. So within that, I want to talk about 3 imperatives that we saw in the stories. The first story is about, the first imperative is about travel as being a place of connection and experiences. But the biggest emphasis is the role that friends and family play, and that's such immense opportunity. Fostering meaningful relationships, building human connection are what makes travel special. And here's an interesting story from a Met fan who traveled to Florida for the World Series game. The Mets lost the game, but you know what he remembers from that journey? It is that power of connection, power of human connection with friends, family, and even the strangers in the stadium who became family. So travel is the journey of open family. And the second imperative that I want to move into is the idea of freedom to grow, nurture curiosity that is related to human connection. Multicultural travelers score really high on the personality trait of openness. So they have this immense need of resilience and understanding resilience. In this specific story, the traveler was mesmerized by the beauty and resilience of an urban environment and how that translates back to her story. Travel is an open road. That's what it stands for. And the third imperative that we saw was, and it brings everything to full circle, that elegant desire of belonging. Most multicultural travelers score high on the personality trait of conscientiousness. You will see that in the story excerpts here, statements like, be kind to me, make me feel welcome, make me feel cool. These really stand high. So the consumer's awareness of adversity and the idea of transcending limitations and overcoming challenges are the road to belonging, and they're looking for solutions. So travel is an open spirit and it's an open flame. And next, I want to walk you through a framework that we see engaging multi-travelers. We see belonging as a desired outcome. It's not a takeaway. It's not a theme in these stories. Belonging is a desired outcome for brands to achieve and understand expectations so that we can take advantages of the competitive opportunities and what these differences and similarities in travelers stand for, and how we can touch upon them in a deeper level. We call this building trust. In order to build belonging, first we must build trust. That's the pathway to belonging, the outcome of belonging. And within this, there are 3 levers that we can play upon. Building those human connections within diverse travelers because they require different messaging, different needs, different values. Making travel accessible to all in many ways, from emotional, physical, and even financial matters. And finally, playing up to personalization so that we can customize, personify, and touch upon the gaps in the industry. Travel is about building positive images of both underserved and overserved audiences. And this is the path to belonging. Next, I want to touch upon on that emotional pathway to build trust. This is one of our AI analysis, and what we have seen is the how at a meta level. In order to build trust, we must play upon joy, anger, and even the emotions of love. And these are the roadways, pathways, emotional paths at a meta level to reach the consumers in achieving trust. And trust takes us to belonging. So now let's take a deeper dive to our meta perspective. You're going to see a ton of emotion, values, and needs and different cohorts here. Through AI, we can understand the implicit human mindset at a deeper level. Here we are looking at some of the differences. It's a playbook that we call. And among these cohorts, the Black LGBTQ plus and the accessibility travelers have the most differences. You can see these in the colors of green and red. But here's an example to how to use these levers and playbook. For example, a destination who is trying to reach to emphasizing on sustainability. They can target those audiences with high self-transcendence because those consumers are super focused on community. And when we look at the audiences with the highest self-transcendence value, we'll see the consumers of accessibility, Black LGBTQ plus, Hispanic, Latino LGBTQ plus audiences scoring the highest in that area. So this is one way to leverage where consumers' mindset are and how to strategize and operationalize the brand's playbook. Because not all consumers are the same. At the meta level, there are intersectionality, but individual level, we are seeing these nuances, subtle differences. So within that, I will hand it to James so that he can talk about the what in travel.
Thanks so much, Ezra. So if that's a lot of the why and even the how, this kind of gets into what. At the end of the day, this is what travelers, your consumers, expect from you. Be inclusive, be technology forward and innovative, satisfy my spirit of adventure, but make it personal. And of course, I want it to be safe, and I want to contribute to sustainability. These are the expectations that multicultural travelers shared with us through this study. And to meet those needs, we have to understand, well, what are the ways to apply those emotional insights into messaging and on-site experiences and creating better welcomes and targeting them through our communications and media? What are the ways we can do that in a more effective way? When we ask travelers, at the end of the day, what are the best ways we can meet those expectations for you? And here's what they told us. Now, there is so much more detail behind these in the full report. And some of these things you probably think you do today and do well. But these travelers don't necessarily experience it that way. So there may be opportunities to fine-tune your messaging, fine-tune the programs and on-the-ground experience, or even create new ones that actually meet their expectations of safety and accessibility, of engaging with them. And by engaging, they don't just mean during the trip, they mean afterwards. Build a conversation, build a relationship, give me reasons to come back. So they're seeking that connection, they're seeking that relationship, and they provided a roadmap for how to do it. And so we've given you just a very small taste of what we learned and what actions you can take to engage these travelers. The rest of it is in the Future of Travel report, which is now available for sale. So when you buy the report, you'll get access to a wealth of insights, recommendations, and tools. In the next couple of slides, you're going to see a QR code. The link to the report will be in the chat, and you'll get the link in your follow-up email along with a link to the full recording of this webinar you can share with your colleagues and teammates. So in the report, first you'll get the executive summary, which has key insights, implications, and clear recommendations. This 23-page sort of narrative style report takes you on a journey through what we learned, what it means for you, and what you can do to engage multicultural travelers more effectively. And then for those of you who love to dive deeper into the data, Your report purchase also includes an in-depth companion deck with all of the findings and data analysis. So with the executive summary as your guide, you can work through the key insights and recommendations at a deeper level. And there are self-guided tools for those of you who want to get started developing new plans right away. Tools that help you walk your site, walk your business, walk your destination, and see it perhaps a little bit more through the eyes of this consumer. Tools that help you think about how your messaging is working or maybe not working today for these audiences, and helps you identify an action plan to start to improve it. So all of those resources are available in the Future of Travel report. And of course, if you want to do a custom study with Future of Travel or participate in a future wave or engage us to help you solve for this problem, those are all possibilities we're happy to pursue. So that's the high level introduction to Future of Travel. We're so excited about what this means. And now it's really time to hear from some of the leaders in the industry who helped make this possible. And for that, I'm going to turn it back to Danny and Whitney.
Thanks so much, James and Ezra. Amazing insights. Really kind of goes, I think, beyond what we know about multicultural travelers. And so, yeah, I wanted to engage our panel today because I think there's some, I mean, for me personally, when we looked at that dichotomy of joy and sadness, a huge insight that I don't think, even as being a person of color who is an often traveler, that when I come to mind of how those things really show up in the experience, whether it's the fear of the unknown or safety or how you're going to get there, but the immense joy that you obviously experience. So this first question goes out to our panelists, all of you. So previous research obviously focuses a lot on quantitative, the how much, the how often, the why they travel, the trip intent. Obviously, this research focuses a lot more on storytelling and emotional connections, and how those things matter to these travelers. And it was done in a way where obviously we're using AI to kind of glean these insights just through narrative and storytelling ideas. I want to know, why was this approach so important for you when you decided to sponsor Future of Travel? And how do these insights actually help your organization as you're navigating multicultural campaigns? So we'll maybe start with Rita. And thank you so much for being a sponsor, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Danny. And it's great to be with you all. What a great, powerful group of companies. And it's just really a joy. We talk about joy here, but it's a joy to engage. And it's really about being committed and all of the great achievements that take time. Rome was not built in a day, and it's really about understanding and patience and perspective. And we really look at it as our long-standing connection to our brand, Virginia's for Lovers. And with over 50 years of our brand representing the heritage, it's evolving, and our destination strategy really focuses on making the brand enticing to travelers from all over the world. And with the primary goal of making the state of Virginia a spectacular place to live. Love is at the heart of our brand. It's in our tagline. Our brand is about the people who love Virginia as a destination. So the Future of Travel, the partnership, helps us enrich our brand with understanding the intersection of travel with personal identity and cultural diversity. It's about the humanness in travel, and we're really tapping into the humanness of travel, aligning perfectly with our inclusive vision.
Thanks so much, Rita. Maybe we'll toss it over to Melissa at Miles.
Hey, thanks, Danny. So, there are a couple of things that were really exciting for Miles to engage in this. And number one, top of the list, is that there's just not enough data on diverse multicultural travelers to begin with in the industry. There's some great data out there, don't get me wrong, and we appreciate all the data that's out there, especially from the partners that we work with. But in this particular case, your approach and methodology was very fascinating in that it wasn't going to just be a quantitative approach where it was very finite in answer, yes, no, or A, B, or C. So using the technology allowed for a broader span of collecting, I think, qualitative data, which is usually smaller in scope from, the traditional approach of focus groups. And what I think people should understand in the collection of data is, number one, you have an underrepresentation of diverse populations in general in the collection of data. And this was a study that was going to go after that specifically. Also, the qualitative approach of using the AI allowed for the nuances to be better understood and really get to, I think, questions around beliefs and values and how those tie to when people make decisions when they travel. And we don't really talk about that. You know, I mean, we know that that exists. I think brands develop that from a destination perspective, and they talk about values as it relates to that. But connecting that back to and that resonating to the traveler is really important. I think you know, what made this really exciting about getting those findings and what the outcomes of the results was is that in a very simplistic way, it validated the fact that diverse travelers just want that sense of community when they get to another community that they travel to. It's really that basic. And I just want to, like, my last point on that is that community means so many things. And, you know, with this study, there's so much intersectionality across beyond just race that it can show, I think, destinations a way in which how to tie back that brand positioning to that system of values and beliefs.
Fantastic, Melissa. Thank you so much. And you're absolutely right with the intention here to really go after people who typically aren't engaged about their travel experiences is really powerful. Tom, we know that Richmond region has been doing an amazing job. I mean, I think of your Black RVA campaign. I think of everything you're doing. Tell us a little bit about just, answering that first question about the value that this new kind of insight brings to your work.
Sure, I'll definitely circle back to Black RVA and Out RVA because they're just tremendous initiatives we have going. But the first, why we got involved, well, we have tremendous respect for James, Ezra, Danny, and Whitney. They're highly respectable and they have a lot of knowledge in this field. Then you add Rita and her rock star team, who have just done so amazing things in the marketing world, and they continue to be great champions of our state. And then you add Melissa and Miles. Their reputation obviously speaks for itself, so it was a no-brainer. But we all should, and I remind my team all the time, that we should know what we don't know. And then you surround yourself with people who know more than you. And I'm thinking about the fantastic Dan Roberts from VTC or Mike Ritchie on my team. And you drill into their brain and watch how they crunch the numbers and analyze the data. Or you go out and obtain that information, buy it, partner on reports like this. But the most definite thing you should remember is know what you don't know. We feel that this report is going to continue to grow our reputation as an inclusive and multicultural region. And finally, one of the reasons we got in on this, and I'll admit it was part FOMO, we just didn't want to be on the outside looking in when there was some game-changing data being developed and uncovered, which there was. We will spend a lot of time incorporating these findings into our everyday operations, sales, marketing. We know we can spend a lot of time talking about AI and how disruptive it has been to how we target and find travel intenders. And we can talk a lot about quantitative data. That's not going away, but we all know that it's kind of one-dimensional. It's kind of anonymous. On the other hand, this report is not going to put any faces on the respondents, but they do something much more that I feel is they put heart and soul on these answers and on these stories. And now that's what I consider a real wow of this report, is to hear these stories from these travel intenders. And if you go through the report, I highly recommend you get it, but you can delve into it over and over again. Each time I delve into it, I come up with a different story. And the one I have taped to my iPad right now is an excerpt. I am so excited to visit your community. I've saved up for this. I planned for this. Please be kind to me and make me feel welcome. This is a big deal for me. There's such raw emotion there. There's such honesty and obviously some history behind that. I think these type of stories should inspire us all. So we're going to dig deeper into our marketing and our assets to ensure we're demonstrating that we are a destination where people feel they can belong and where they can find cultural joy. And I smile every time I say that term, because how cool is it to have in all of our missions, everybody on this call, to have a goal and a mission to provide and to generate cultural joy for our travelers. So that's our inspiration going forward. We're happy to be part of this report and look forward to talking more about it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Tom. You speaking about cultural joy, I think that's just so strong. And the excerpt that you shared, that's one of my favorite ones as well. It's definitely one that I can relate to, and I might do the same thing, having a printout and having that next to my laptop, just as that constant motivation and inspiration. This question that I want to tee up is for Rita. So, Rita, you make the decision to launch a multicultural campaign, you implement the campaign. How is it that you measure success to show that it's making an impact in the state? So that way you're able to continue it year after year.
Well, we want to always ensure that a campaign is working. And you really do that through the people that we touch. So the measurements come from bookings. They come from looking at engagement from our targeted audience. It really comes from immersion and the experiences that people have. And it comes from word of mouth and referrals. So there's so many ways to really look at the intersection of the experience related to the measurement and if we're doing a good job. And while all of the emotional components and pieces of that are really important, it's important for us looking at the value of the campaign. And we really wanted to ensure, and we knew that we were going to be on to something. When we first started this, the film Harriet, we convened a group of stakeholders who we knew could help us better identify, like, how can we talk about what happened in a really tough part of our history? But also we can talk about how the abundant assets in Virginia are something that people should come and have fun with and bring the family and, do lots of things. It's kind of that hub and spoke. You start with one piece of a cultural heritage, perhaps, but then you go on a whole nother level for food and craft beverages and just everything that people love to do on vacation. So we really were tied into making it a complete experience for the traveler and measuring it that way.
I love that. History, we've learned in our studies together that history, it has better understanding your history has the power to help you better understand yourself or get a better appreciation for the destination that you're visiting. And so, connecting that to all the different elements of travel, of an experience, food, like you said, the culture, it just makes for a memorable and very impactful travel trip.
But also it goes with the travel behavior too, that shared mind. And that measurement offers alignment, with our purpose and our mission. Because again, we want to make sure that it's really tying into back to the brand and that love that's in the brand. And we want everyone who travels to Virginia to feel the love.
Exactly. Tom, let me ask the similar question to you. As far as your measurements for your multicultural campaigns, are there any particular tools that you're using or particular things that you're measuring? That
Sure.
question's for you.
Thanks, Whitney. And I'll let you all in a little secret. They asked me who I'd wanted to follow here, Melissa or Rita, and I said neither. And you can understand why. But I agree on all the metrics that Rita and VTC are using. We're using the same to measure our multicultural tourism campaigns. But we had a little foundation in place long before this report. And Richmond Region Tourism has been really proactive in this area in raising awareness of cultural experiences and connecting travelers. And I'm in the person that can brag a little about this because I had absolutely nothing to do with it. This was going on long before I made my way down from Pittsburgh a couple years ago. But it really starts with our engaged and really empathetic leadership, continues with our hardworking, passionate community relations department, and also includes really a fantastic DEI committee made up of our staff. But we will all tell you the major benefits to all of our efforts in this area are created by Black RVA, which was created in 2019, and Out RVA was created back in 2010. For those of you who don't know about them, they are two very successful community-inspired initiatives between RRT and passionate community leaders. They both have the same goals: to inspire travel, to raise awareness of cultural experiences, and also to promote local businesses. So we've been collecting that data for years. Now we have a lot more to think about with the findings in this report, but both of these committees, we have a staff liaison, Tamika Jefferson, to ensure they have the support they need, but they run their own website, they run their own social media, and they run their own marketing campaigns. And the social media part is very important because, as we found in the report, more and more multicultural travelers are making their travel decisions based on social media and influencers. So we really want to beef that up as we move forward. And so you can imagine, as a marketing team, my marketing team, we have an easy part here. All we have to do is amplify the messaging and the results that Black RVA and Out RVA are getting. And we also use our own social influencers to talk about our multicultural experiences. Then we use paid media to push that out. So very excited about incorporating this new data, especially the goals of driving travelers here so they find a sense of belonging and obviously the cultural joy.
Thank you, Tom, so much for that insight. Great work you guys are doing. Very, very admirable. Melissa, you come from a different perspective. Obviously, at Miles Partnership, you've helped grow a dedicated D&I team and obviously sponsored this amazing research. Tell us a little bit about how this will work to guide your clients. You guys have such a big footprint, and obviously, as a passion of D&I or having a passion in this area, want to make travel more inclusive. How are you thinking about it from an agency perspective, applying these insights and leading clients to success?
Yeah, I mean, as a DEI team at Miles, it is really our purpose within the company to advance equitable, inclusive marketing practices through. So, we're really strategic advisors, we're strategists, we're available, and we work with the clients across the organization and work with building out DEI work. And it's exciting because there's such an appetite for it that we see from our clients, also within our teams. But this work is really important because, as you mentioned earlier, this is the largest growth in a segment of, a population that you're going to see in our lifetime, right? And so how do we start to have a long-term approach to really creating branding and promotion and positioning that is going to resonate? And if you're talking about building trust, that is not a year in, that's not 18 months. That is a long-term commitment, and any industry from a marketing perspective, brands that have trust have been doing it for a very long time. So it's going to be very important, I think, to take these takeaways. And internally for us, it's also how can our team build tools. As an example, our team worked with our own internal DEI committee as a company to build a style guide that we can use with clients. We don't share it with clients, I'm just going to say that. But we use it internally so that we are using terms and terminology and language consistently. And what I think was interesting about this study is pulling the insights into kind of the next edition of that to really address content and creative and a lot of the broader work that we do. I mean, we touch so many destinations and kind of how they use their own channels and paid channels. We want to make sure that these findings are part of that insight and used in a resourceful way.
Awesome, Melissa. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of our panelists today. We're at time. 45 minutes just flew by. There's some wonderful questions. I want to welcome James and Ezra back on camera and close out this amazing webinar. We will be providing a recording to everybody who's registered. And we will again want to thank James. I know you had some closing thoughts that you wanted to share with the group here before we depart.
I just want to say word of the day is joy.
Joy.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
No, thanks, Danny. And I know Ezra did begin to answer that question about how AI is used in this study, and there's more detail which we can share in the follow-up Q&A. I think the main point that we're stressing here is, the stories give us a basis of really, really rich emotion about people's lives and experiences. And the way we built our tools and technology, we're using AI to really determine what the emotions, as well as the story themes, as well as the key experiences, what they in fact are. And so that allows us to then develop implications, insights, and recommendations for what you can go do. The other question I think came up real quickly was how will this help hotels, event organizers, restaurants, etc. We agree 100% that at the end of the day, the brand or the destination can deliver the messaging, but the on the ground experience is where the memory gets made. And so, much of what we've developed in terms of our recommendations go all the way down to the ground level. What is the welcome? How does hospitality engage? What happens when they step off their plane, get into their Uber, show up in your downtown? So all of those aspects that really do create that overall experience are definitely addressed in this study. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you to a few key people and individuals. You've already heard from this amazing group of panelists, Rita, Tom, and Melissa, who, along with their teams, have really led the way in supporting this initiative. There's a few others we just want to make sure we thank before we jump off today. On the Share More Stories team, I really want to thank Claire Wheatus and Andy Citizen, who are hugely important behind the scenes folks that make this work. Andy's our Chief Technology Officer. Claire is our Customer Operations Project Manager. This study wouldn't have happened without them. At JMI, I want to thank Noel Ritter, Barbara Olwig, and Ken Johnson for their support in developing and launching this initiative. Dion Neely, who did a phenomenal job on the report. David Newberger and Meenakshi Mittal, who did a wonderful job in getting our reports up and out. A special shout out to Dan Roberts and Pratiksha Bhattari at VTC for getting on board early with us. Thank you. And finally, a special shout out to the Miles Partnership team for a wonderful show of support for today's initiative. So thank you all so much for making this possible. Thank you all for being here. And we are just so grateful for what's to come. I'll leave the link and the QR code for the report up on the screen as we close out. And we hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita.
Welcome.